Hey guys, welcome back. First off, I want to thank all those that entered the giveaway for the Caltime Commander deck. But now it's time to announce the winner. Drumroll please. And the winner is Amanda Salazar. I want to thank this longtime viewer and hope you'll find a good use for the new Commander deck. I hope the channel will continue to grow so I can continue to do more of these giveaways. If you'd like to see that, give this video a like and subscribe. But now back to the video. Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board. Hey guys, we have another game of CEDH for you. This was another game that showed that combos can be stopped and that players need to apply pressure to their opponents and not just dawdle around. First up, we have Jimmy piloting Marith. This Naya control deck looks to use creature-based stacks cards along with Marith to slow his opponents down until he can assemble one of his own combos. Next up is Steve piloting Riel. This is an Is It Discard Matters deck that uses Riel's ability to net positive on cards such as Faithless Looting to dig deep and assemble an Underworld Breach combo. But if this deck looks interesting, we did a deck tech on it. Cough cough, link in the corner. Third up is Rick. He brought a new commander combo to the table. He's running Kedis, Emberclaw Familiar, and Ishai, Ojutai Dragonspeaker. This deck is a Miracle Grow deck that tries to stick Ishai and protect him till he's large enough to one-shot a player. He partnered it with Kedis to allow him to spread the damage out since Ishai can grow ridiculously fast. And bringing up the rear is Porfs, who's piloting Brago, King Eternal. This is an Azorius control deck that uses lots of fast mana and stacks pieces to slow his opponents down. He relies on Brago to reset his fast mana and gain advantage. But without further ado, let's get on to the gameplay. Jimmy starts off the game with a Windswept Heath and passes after that. Steve plays and cracks a Scalding Tarn to grab a Volcanic, to which Jimmy responds by cracking his own fetch to grab a Savannah. Steve follows this up with a Mystic Remora, and Jimmy responds again with an Enlightened Tutor to grab an Earthcraft. He puts it on top, and then the fish resolves. Steve passes after that. Rick plays a Polluted Delta and debates what he wants to do.
Jeez. I don't want to feed the fish, but
But you always do anyway.
Fish.
You literally always
I
do,
have
Rick.
to.
I don't believe...
I'm
Rick,
forced to feed her
Rick,
right now.
Rick, I don't believe you anymore. You literally say the same sentence every time there's a Mystic Remora in play.
He ends up cracking the fetch for an island and then uses it to cast a Soul Ring, letting Steve draw. Fernando has a quick turn, cracking his Misty Rainforest to grab a Tundra and passes after that. Jimmy plays a Spire Garden and then uses it to cast a Destiny Spinner, passing. Steve pays for his fish and then plays a Sulphur Falls. He uses it to cast a Ponder, choosing not to shuffle, and then draws a card. He follows it up by paying 2 life to Gataxi and probe Fernando. He draws his card and then passes. Rick plays another basic, this one being a Plains, and then casts his commander Ishai, passing after that. Fernando plays and cracks another fetch, this one being a Flooded Strand, and grabs a snow-covered island and passes the turn. Jimmy starts off his turn by casting a Lotus Cobra. He then plays a Wooded Foothills, triggering the Cobra for a green. He then cracks the fetch to grab a Forest, which triggers the Cobra for another green. He then taps out for a Generous Patron. He supports on the Destiny Spinner, but the table doesn't realize the patron only draws cards when he adds counters to creatures he doesn't control, and then Jimmy draws a card from supporting it. Rick finally realized he has missed his Ishai trigger and adds 1 counter for the patron. Jimmy then heads to combat, rolling to see who he hits. This ends up being Steve, who takes 3 from the Destiny Spinner, and Jimmy passes after that. On Steve's upkeep, he kills the fish, and on his main phase, he cracks a Prismatic Vista to grab an island, and casts a Jace's Archivist. This triggers the Ishai, and Steve is done after that. Rick plays a Mountain for land, and then casts a Mystic Remora of his own. It resolves, and then he moves to combat, swinging Ishai at Jimmy for 4. On his second main, he casts a Chromox, imprinting a Narset's Reversal, and passes after that. Fernando plays a Command Tower, and then casts an Oath of Jace, triggering both Ishai and the fish. He draws 3 and discards 2, and follows it up with a Chromox, triggering both Ishai and the fish again. He imprints a Muddle the Mixture and passes after that. Jimmy casts an Earthcraft and then uses his creatures to cast a Smothering Tide, triggering both Ishai and the fish. God, I wish my fish was this effective. Jimmy passes after that. Steve draws and doesn't pay the tithe. On his main phase, he shocks in a Steam Vents, and he goes to cast his commander, Riel, triggering Ishai. And in response, Rick Pyroblasts the Archivist to destroy it. Riel resolves and Steve is done after that. On Rick's upkeep, he pays for the fish, but doesn't pay for the tithe tax on his draw. On his first main, he plays a Tundra as land and then casts a Blood Moon to try and slow Jimmy down. He follows it up with a Curse Totem, and in response, Jimmy cracks a treasure to cast a Worldly Tutor. This triggers Ishai, but Rick forgets the fish. Rick, not being able to counter Jimmy's creatures, stops the tutor with a Flusterstorm. He then moves to combat, swinging 10 Ishai at Jimmy and passes after that. Fernando doesn't pay the Tithe tax either, and then plays a Plains as land. He follows it up with a Recruiter of the Guard, triggering Ishai. Fernando tutors up a Tribute Mage and passes after that. Jimmy starts his turn off with a Fertile Ground on the basic forest. He then uses it to cast Marath. He uses his creature to untap his land and cast an Ancient Grudge to blow up the Cursed Totem. Steve, being the first in the turn order, responds with a Fierce Guardianship to counter it. Jimmy creates more mana to cast a Green Sun Zenith where X equals 3, leaving 1 green floating. Fernando responds by casting a Mana Drain. The Zenith is countered, and Jimmy follows it up by flashing back the Ancient Grudge. Not wanting the game to end, Fernando casts a Force of Negation for free by pitching a Flusterstorm.
Of course not. Just can't
Sorry,
let me
Jimmy.
win one.
After, Jimmy uses Marath to generate mana to cast a Skull Clamp, and Rick finally remembers that he is both an Ishai and a Mystic Remora, triggering both. Jimmy clamps his Lotus Cobra to draw 2, and then plays a Bountiful Promenade, and uses it to equip the Patron, and passes after that. Steve doesn't pay the Tithe tax and plays an Island as land for turn. He starts his turn off by casting an Underworld Breach. He notes that he will not be paying for any Tithe or Fish triggers, and goes to cast a Frantic Search. He draws 2, discards 2, and untaps 3 lands, triggering Uriel to draw 2 additional cards. He responds with a Mystical Tutor to grab a Brain Freeze to draw it off the Riel trigger. He casts it, milling 12 cards, but doesn't find a mana-producing spell. So he is forced to start drawing cards from casting a Gitaxian Probe. The first probe goes at Rick. He does it the second time, pointing it at Fernando to draw, and then goes for a third time, and then a fourth. On the 5th time, he finds a Chromox, imprinting an Izzet Charm. He uses it to cast a Mystical Tutor to see if he can get the win, but doesn't have enough mana and chooses to fail to find, in hopes he draws an LED. He casts his final Gitaxian Probe, but doesn't find it and passes the turn. Rick starts off his turn by paying for his fish, and on his main phase casts a Mana Crypt and an Izzet Signet, and lastly his commander Kedis. Steve responds with a Pact Negation.
Steve, why? 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 Come on! I'm just gonna shuffle up.
To which Rick counterspells with a Dovin's Veto. Rick heads to combat and swings Ishai at Fernando to take him out with commander damage, and the Kedis trigger finishes off the other players. Game review. So this was a good game, and it shows how powerful free counter magic can be. Jimmy had 3 different ways to remove that cursed totem, but all were stopped by counter magic. Blue can definitely be frustrating at times like these, and you could definitely tell that he got frustrated by all the counter magic. Also, a moment of silence for all the missed Ishai and Mystic Remora triggers from Rick. You might have been forgotten then, but you will always be remembered here. But, question to the viewer, do you think Wizards should stop printing more free counter spells? Let me know in the comments down below why they should or shouldn't be doing this anymore. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay, and if you did, leave a like and consider subscribing, as it really helps us keep making videos. And remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.